For the last 2 years, we've been working on a project called the Next Generation Professional Service Firm Project. And in that research, we have been thinking about technology, but not really from a technical perspective, and not obsessing about what technology and algorithms or machine learning or whatever it might be can or cannot do. But rather, we've been thinking about professional service organizations and what it means for them as organizations, what they look like today, how they might look in the future. And of course, COVID has changed that conversation somewhat, but also actually, I think, provided an opportunity to pause and reflect and think about what we learned before COVID and how that becomes relevant today and as we move forward. So that's what I want to reflect on a little bit today, what we learned from our research, but also what it might mean for what organizations might want to be doing now as we think about whatever this post-COVID period is and whenever it is. So just to kind of a year ago, I was involved in one of Richard's events, and we were not quite, well, it was just not quite a year ago. We were thinking, what do we do now? And I think many of the conversations about how do we work at home, how do we deal with the fact we're not in the office, of course, moved on, and we're entering a different stage. And changes in organizations and new technology certainly played a role in that transition, obviously Zoom, but some organizations, of course, had the advantage of having new technology in place that allowed them to respond to their clients' needs in different ways, and had learnt lessons from the kind of transition journey that they've been on as they've been started to bring new technology into the organization. As I say, I think we've moved beyond that stage now, and really we're now at a moment where it's important to pause and reflect and think about what might the future look like. Think about what role technology has in that, but really not over obsessed with it, and instead ask the question about what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and then maybe pause and think about how technology might be part of the response to those challenges and opportunities. And so what we've been doing in our research, and Richard mentions, is an event coming up shortly where we're going to kind of present some of the key findings from this. What we've done first and foremost is look at what organizations have been doing in terms of using technology, but to change their business model, professional practice, or the fundamental kind of raison d'etre of the organization. So really the question and the conversation starts not with the technology, but with the question of what's your purpose as an organization? What do you offer your clients? What do your clients need? And how do you deliver that? So as part of our research, we've focused as much on the business model and the professional practices within organizations as we have the technology. And as part of our research, we've developed a series of case studies that have looked at how organizations have changed their business model, their client offering, and the professional practices that allow that offering to be delivered. And that's a really important conversation to have before you even ask the question about what is the technology, because unless we know the purpose, the reason, the change that needs to happen, asking what technology can do is a little bit pointless. And really, as we move into this kind of post-COVID era, it certainly now is the time where these questions need to be asked. And where do we anticipate being in 5 years' time in terms of what we offer our clients and how we offer it? Equally important, though, and this connects to some of the things that Kim was talking about, it's also about how you actually make this happen. It's about how you actually implement this and the approaches that you need to take to kind of go on that journey once you've done the analysis and worked out what your purpose, what your objectives are. Because if there's one thing we know about professional service firms, is that if you don't bring your people with you, then nothing's going to happen. And what we've done in the research is look at a series of kind of cross-cutting questions that you could ask about any kind of future scenario for organizations. What does your partnership look like in the future? What does buy-in from your professionals look like, and how do you achieve it? Trying to avoid the question about the technology and more thinking about the organization and how it will need to change and evolve in line with new client offerings, but also the way technology facilitates that. And so by thinking about how partnerships change as you need experts who are able to use technology and provide data-led services, you ask questions about the fundamental kind of architecture of the professional service organization. And these are not new questions in many ways. We could have stood here 10 years ago and asked the question, what's the future of your partnership? But there's new dimensions to this that start to emerge as you begin to rethink the business model. You begin to rethink the kind of professionals that you might anticipate having in your organization in the next 5 to 10 years. And so that question about what's the purpose, but also how do you implement and what approaches do you need to achieve the change is really crucial. Otherwise, it just becomes another kind of strategic plan that sits on a shelf and doesn't get delivered. So to conclude, where we've ended up with our research we're using an analogy of a journey. And that all firms need to go on a journey as part of this process that begins by thinking, yes, about technology, but more importantly about their organization, their business model, and the way their organization operates. And then through this journey, and there are various detours that can be taken along the way, and COVID has certainly been a detour with new scenery that many of us didn't expect. But as part of that journey and those detours, there are stages that allow incremental change, sometimes radical change in the organization that ultimately kind of develops a new future orientated model that has technology in it, but more fundamentally has a real recognition about what the form of the professional service firm should be in the future.